spiritual background. Good, good. Yes. Well, this is my, as you can see, we'll start now. As you can see, I'm tuning in here from Ergien House. This is Bante's seat in his lounge. I often came to see him here and sat in this chair and talked to Bante. But I'm going to hand over now to start us with Vadrajoti over there. Where are you, Vadrajoti? Tell us where you are.
Hi there, I'm Vadrajoti. I'm from Auckland in New Zealand. I'm just seeing hellos from other people here in Auckland. Yeah, so welcome everybody. I think the first thing we need to do is sort out the translators. We have translations into French, German and Spanish. So apparently there's a I just got muted. I'm unmuted now. I hope you've heard all of that.
No. Perhaps say that again, Vadrajoti, what the translators need to do.
So with the translations, I understand there's an icon down the bottom of your screen for anyone who needs translations into German, French or Spanish. And we're just going to test now that that's working.
Alors, si vous écoutez en français, vous devrez trouver un bouton quelque part que je ne vois pas moi-même, que vous pouvez appuyer dessus pour avoir la traduction en français.
Genau, und falls ihr Deutsch sprecht und ihr möchtet eine deutsche Übersetzung, dann wartet auf das kleine Globus-Symbol, was jetzt gleich erscheinen wird, und wählt den deutschen Kanal aus.
Where's Spanish gone?
Yeah, we're waiting for Spanish now.
Si ustedes desean escuchar esta transmisión en español, busquen un icono en la parte de abajo de la pantalla que dice traducción al español y nos van a escuchar a Sadaruchi y a mí.
Okay. So I hope that worked for everyone. I don't know that there's a way of checking that now. So we'll move into this morning or this afternoon's event, or whatever time of day it is for you. So there will be, we're running for 2 hours with a 10-minute break in the middle. There'll be 3 short talks from members of the college and 3 even shorter talks from Mitras who are training for ordination. And unfortunately, they have to be really short. I'm sorry about that, because it would be lovely to hear more from everyone. But we're wanting to leave as much time as possible for questions after the break. So there'll be a Q&A style session after the break in about an hour's time. So now I'm handing back to Maitreya Bandhu.
Thank you, Vadrajoti. Thank you. Before we start properly, I thought it'd be lovely just to introduce the college to you. So first of all, we'll ask you to ask whoever's doing tech, I can't remember, to spotlight the Preceptors College. We're at a meeting at the moment, a public Preceptors College meeting. So you might see all there they are. Those are all looking very, thank you, a wave. They're looking much more. Anyway, they're looking very beautiful. Thank you. That's great. But also, of course, we need to see the college members elsewhere. So let's have a virtual hand up from any college member in New Zealand or Australia. So we see you. So can we capture those people? Is that possible? There you go. There's Malini and Perna on Waiheke Island. There's Ratnavyuha. Yeah, so all those people waving are either in Australia or New Zealand, and they're in the college. There's Sila Dasa in Melbourne. And then what about the US? And who's here from the US? Any college members here from the US? Give a wave. There's, that's great. There's Viradama from the US, Karuna Devi. Can you see them waving? There they are. That's great. So you have all these college members appearing. And then what about mainland Europe? Anyone from mainland Europe who can wave? Mogaratna, that's great. Anybody else? I think you're the only, are you the only one still? No, Paramachitta, of course. There's Paramachitta. So welcome the both of you. And Mexico, let's have a wave from Mexico. Where is Nagapriya? Is Nagapriya here? There's Nagapriya, great. Anyone else? Where's Parami? Parami in Latin. Oh, you're doing Latin America. You okay? Well, I was thinking of you as Scotland, but yes, that's great. And anyone from the UK that's not here at the meeting? Is anyone else here? From the college, I was thinking. So that gives you a brief introduction to the college. So let's just highlight the Preceptors College meeting again, just to show you the meeting, just to give you a sense of us all. We're all in the middle of a college meeting. We've been having lots of discussions, but that's our very brief introduction to them. So that gives you a sense of the college. I'm now going to hand back to Vadrajyoti.
Yeah, just to say very quickly and ask the speakers to do something that I don't do very well myself, which is to speak slowly, please, because of the translations. So the speakers from the college will have 10 minutes and there'll be a bell at the end of 10 minutes, and you will need to stop. You can finish your sentence, of course, but you will need to stop very soon after the bell. And for the mitras who are training for ordination who have been asked to speak, there'll be a bell after 5 minutes when you'll need to be winding up. And as I said, this is also, we've got loads of time questions at the end. But before that, we will be starting with the refuges and precepts in unison, which Malini is going to lead. So Malini, I can't see you, but hopefully you will be spotlighted in a moment. Yeah, okay, hi Malini. So could you please unmute, or Perna, could you please unmute? Yeah, hi Malini.
Hi, there you are. Right.
Yeah, so how long have you been in the order, Malini?
Goodness, 52 years.
Oh my goodness.
I
Must have
sound
been ordained when you were about 3. And how long have you been in the college?
Just 4 years.
4 years in the college. And where are you at this very moment?
At this very moment, I'm in our shrine room on Waiheke Island.
Which
Which
is
yep.
Yeah. Which is just across the water from Auckland.
Yeah.
Okay, so over to you, Malini.
Over to me. So yeah, we're going to do the refuges and precepts in unison, which I'll obviously just start off. And please chant them in your own language, unless you're with other people of different languages, of course. Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi, Dhammāṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammāṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammāṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi. Panatipata Pheremani Sikapadang Samadhyami Adinadana Pheremani Sikapadang Samadhyami Kamesu Michachara Pheremani Sikapadang Samadhyami Musabada Pheremani Sikapadang Samadhyami Suramirya Maja Hamadatana Pheremani Sikapadang Samadhyami Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. With deeds of loving kindness, I purify my body. With open-handed generosity, I purify my body. With stillness, simplicity, and contentment, I purify my body. With truthful communication, I purify my speech. With mindfulness clear and radiant, I purify my mind.
Thank you, Malini. Thank you very much. Really lovely to have you start our evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time we're in, over there in Waiheke Island. And amazing, you've been ordained for 52 years. That's wonderful. I meant to say, I'd forgotten to say that my Trey is not feeling very well this evening, so Vajratara has kindly agreed to step in. Yeah. So yes, we wanted to start obviously with chanting the refuges and the precepts, because of course that's at the very heart of our tradition, going for refuge to the Buddha, to his teachings, and to all of the Sangha, enlightened Sangha in particular, and that expressed in the taking of the 5 great precepts. And of course at ordination you take 10 precepts, which, as Bhante says, Sangharakshita says, Bhante says, become vow-like when you take them at ordination. So it feels just right, doesn't it, that we start by chanting the refuges and precepts. And thank you, Malini. So I'm now going to hand over to Padmavajra. So Padmavajra, if you'd like to come and join us, there you are. We've got 2 cameras over there in the shrine room. We're getting very technologically savvy at the moment. So Padmavajra, how old were you when you first came upon what was then the Western Buddhist Order and the Friends of the Western Buddhist Order? How old were you when you first came along?
17.
17, yes. You're a bit older now. How long have you been ordained?
Well, I was ordained in 1976. So what's that? Mathematicians?
A long time. And how long have you been in the college?
I was made a public preceptor in 1998.
1998. So I know you're tuning in from Adhisthana just now, but just say a little bit about where you'd normally be tuning in from.
Oh, Padmaloka, that's where I live. Sorry, that was a question. I thought you were going to say that. Sorry.
Okay, so over to you then, Padmavajra.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Maitreya Bandhu, and brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. It's very lovely to be with you this evening. Yes, I was ordained in 1976, the long, hot summer of 1976, on a weekend retreat. I'd been involved for a couple of years. And of course, I was ordained by Bhante Urgyen Sangharakshita. And it's the most important event in my life. It's a turning point in my life, even though it happened when I was very young. Everything led up to that and everything has come from that. There's so much I could say about that, but it's just an image really of being ordained by Bhante. Bhante wearing these deep yellow robes. He had long, greasy hair. He was wearing an elaborate gold brocade Tibetan shirt and special beads given to him by Mr. Chen. And he ordained me. He gave me the refuges and precepts, initiated me into a mantra, and named me Padmavajra. And it's completely unforgettable. I'm sure this is true of all order members, but I meditate on my ordination every day. It's always present. There was a tremendous release of energy. That energy still goes on. And there's a lot I could say about that, but one thing is very clear to me. That energy was released because the man that I most revered was taking me so seriously, more seriously than I took myself. It's looking back, it's as if he was saying, this is really you. This is what you really are. In fact, he did say that at my ordination. He said those very words. This is what you really are. And when somebody you revere takes you so deeply seriously, it changes you. It changes your life completely. And yes, there was a tremendous release of energy. And of course, it didn't mean that my life was perfect as an order member, far from it. And I'll jump forward many years to about 1990 in India. I'd done various things in the movement, but probably the most significant up to that point was being with brothers and sisters in the Dhamma working in India. And I got a letter from Subhuti asking me to move to Padmaloka to join the ordination team, which was a huge surprise. I never thought that was going to happen. The ordination team was very new. Bhante had just asked order members to start doing ordinations independently of himself. So Subhuti, on the men's side, Subhuti and Suvadra were doing that. They were mainly doing that. And it was a big surprise to join that team. And it was fantastic moving to Padmaloka. It was very much a community of very, very close friends who not just loved the Dharma, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, not just going for refuge, but loved the order and loved Bhante and just wanted to serve Bhante in the order and take his work forward. A very, very intimate, very, very strong sense of rediscovering what we are as order members, particularly helping men in their training for ordination. And I was there, doing the retreats. One by one, all the greats started to leave. Subhuti, Suvadra, Sona, all the people that I thought I was just going to tag, get a hold of. And, Surita and I are left from those times in that team. And then it was also a big surprise to me to be appointed as first a private preceptor and then a public preceptor. That was a really big surprise. Didn't expect that, wasn't consulted, was just told that's what you're going to do. Of course, I could have said no, but that didn't seem right either, because there was this strong sense of really wanting to serve Bhante. But one thing I'm very, very clear about in having the great honor of being a public preceptor, I couldn't have done that without being in that context, being with that community at Padmaloka. That's very, very clear to me, that it comes out of a community. And when I first did public ordinations, one of the things that really struck me was, and it's a huge privilege, a huge honor, it's very humbling to perform a public ordination, to receive people into the order, to give the refuges and precepts to them, to adorn them with their kesa, to put the drops of water on their head from the initiation vase. But one thing you become very aware of, one thing I became aware of immediately, was that you're part of a vast network of trust. You have this great privilege of, as it were, standing for in yourself, you're not representing, but sort of in you're a kind of almost microcosm, if you like, of the order throughout the entire world, because that ordination stands everywhere. That's not questioned anywhere in the Triratna cosmos. Now that's quite something, to be at that moment, right near the center of that network of trust. And it's something that's, for me, that's what the college essentially is. The Preceptors College is a community of public preceptors bound together to serve Bhante, to serve the Three Jewels, to serve the order, and they really trust one another. This was brought home to me recently, one of the first in-person retreat I led away from Padmaloka here at Adhisthana a few weeks ago, an order retreat on the life and liberation of Padmasambhava. And it was a small order retreat. It was about 30 Dharmacharis and Dharmacharinis, about half and half. Some of them very newly ordained, some of them been ordained a long time. And the thing that struck me was that unless you knew that they were very newly ordained or very, been ordained a long time, you wouldn't have known, if you see what I mean. Every single order member was completely into that retreat. And there were people I'd never met before, especially with Dharmacharinis I'd never met before, never knew about. And they didn't have to prove to me that they were order members. They didn't have to kind of show me a special certificate that they'd been ordained by someone. They were just there, here, in this environment, part of this incredible network of trust. And we went so deep, so quickly in the Dharma. And it's experiences like that that really give me a great deal of faith and confidence in the order and what we're doing. I said that Bhante, that Bhante took me completely seriously. That was the feeling, more seriously than I took myself. We talk about ordination as the witnessing of one's going for refuge. This is the way Bhante's characterized it. This direct seeing that you are indeed going for refuge. The good in you is really burgeoning forth, and you're really vowing yourself to it, and you're capable of vowing yourself to it. And that's seen by the person you most revere. And that's really what we're doing in the college. All the different meetings we have, in the end, it's about seeing the good. It's about seeing people really wanting to live deeply from the good, not just for themselves, but for the benefit of everybody, for the benefit of the whole world. So that, for me, is essentially what the College of Public Preceptors is. It's a community dedicated to that. I think really, that's really all I have to say about that. Extraordinarily, the bell hasn't even gone yet. I think that must be a record for me. So it's my great delight now to hand over to somebody I've never met, I don't know. I'm going to hand over to Cara, who is in Sydney, Australia. Very warm welcome, Cara, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about why you've asked for ordination. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a real honour to be asked to speak. Thank you for all being here. So my name is Cara Rinaldi. I'm 36 years old, originally from Glasgow in Scotland. I was born there and lived there until my mid-20s. But for the last 10 years, I've been living in Australia, with most of this time spent in Sydney. Last week, I actually became an Australian citizen, but I still feel very connected to my Scottish roots, as well as maintaining a connection to my Italian heritage as well. I'm a veterinary surgeon, and I've been working in this field for over 13 years. And before arriving in Australia, I spent around 7 months travelling in India and Southeast Asia, working and travelling. And it was my first real contact with the Buddhist world and appreciation of those living spiritual lives. I first came across the Triratna movement around 6 years ago at the Sydney Buddhist Centre with a desire to learn to meditate. I was immediately taken by the Dharma study element of classes and the discussions around teachings of the Buddha and hearing about life experiences of Order members. I quickly became familiar with the Sydney Sangha through the Young Sydney Buddhist group and Saturday morning Dharma classes and retreats held out at Vijayaloka Retreat Centre. 3.5 years ago, I asked to become a Mitra, and 1.5 years ago, I asked to join the process of ordination training. I would say that my path thus far has been the path of regular steps, and asking for ordination was very much the logical next step for me. I had been curious of this step for a while, and for some time, turning it over in my mind, before it became very apparent to me that indeed that is what I needed to do to evolve in my life. So casting my mind back to 1.5 years ago when I asked to join the GFR process, it was actually in the midst of the first lockdown of the pandemic, and the whole world was gripped in a state of anxiety and uncertainty. For me personally, not only was I separated from my family in Scotland, but I was also separated from my community in Sydney, because I had agreed to join my then partner to be with him and his family in South Australia for the lockdown period. During this time, there were moments where I felt very isolated and alone, and I was terrified of the people that I hold dear to me getting sick or dying with no means of getting back to them in the UK if this scenario occurred. And some of my deepest and oldest fears became part of my everyday experience and reality. But the thing that really kept me grounded through this difficult time and prevented me from spiralling into horrified anxiety and hellish states of mind were the three jewels. It was in this moment I had a glimpse into the nature of samsara and insight into the universal nature of our suffering. Simultaneously, I realised the true refuges were such, the only refuges that could be relied upon and absolutely fundamental in the path to lead from suffering. And there was a real sense of confidence and shraddha arising for me in this moment. So taking the next step and continuing on this path made perfect sense to me. It felt intuitively right, and I knew in my heart going deeper with practice and committing myself as fully as I could was what I needed to do to further develop my capacity for insight, for love and care, and true connection with others on the same journey and with all beings. It really gives me true meaning and purpose in my life, so I felt like, how could I possibly go wrong? So really, it's the only way I saw a chance to transcend the variables of external conditions to lead to something beyond. And the most natural way to explore the mystery of life, open up to the richness and many facets of human experience. So despite the topsy-turvy conditions of samsara, going for refuge to the three jewels remains a constant in my life. It gives me a deep sense of confidence and fearlessness to conquer and overcome, even in the darkest moments, as well as opening me up to the beauty in life. So no matter what conditions prevail, deepening practice will be central to this. So I've yet to be convinced otherwise, so long may the journey continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. I look forward to meeting you either before you are ordained or in the order at an Australasian Order event. I found your talk very moving. Thank you. Now, as Maitreya Bandhu said, Maitreyi is unwell and is unable to make it this evening. So Vajratala has valiantly offered, maybe, or at least agreed to stand in for her. So Vajratara, I don't really need to ask you this, but when did you get ordained?
The same year as you, which was 2004.
Exactly, at Il Convento in Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when did you join the college?
Well, I don't know when you officially joined the college. I guess it's kind of now.
Yes.
Yeah. So as of Friday evening.
Okay, so welcome to the College of Vajratara, and one of your first tasks and tests maybe is right now. Go for it.
Yeah, I was asked to give this talk while I was washing up supper. So I did manage to finish the washing up, and I had a shower, and now I'm here. So, but yeah, today was a very important day actually for myself and my trade, because we went to Ergin House, which is where Panti lived, and my trade, we had a small ceremony, and she handed me, ritually sort of transferred to me, to be custodian of the of her initiation vase. So that's what happened this afternoon in Ergin House. And I was very, very pleased to be able to do that ceremony with her, because I think she's a very big part of me becoming a public preceptor. And in a way, it's out of gratitude to her and seeing her work and the way that she's lived her life that made me want to do the same. So I remember when I first met Maitreyi, and yeah, I must have been 20 when I asked for ordination. And, you know, I was a little bit all over the place, a little bit scatty at times. I didn't find it easy to get up for meditation in the early morning. And like Padma Vajra was saying, actually, she took me absolutely seriously. She took me more seriously than I took myself. And she gave to me privately, she ordained me privately, gave me my name, gave me my sadhana or my meditation practice, and Ratnadharani ordained me publicly. And both together, they gave me something of such importance that really has been the linchpin in my life. I really understood what Padma Vajra was talking about, this kind of central point in my life where everything leads up to it. And in a way, since that time in 2004, I've been working out the implications of it. So it's out of gratitude to her of giving me something so meaningful and important that I agreed to become a public preceptor when I was asked. And I think it's also, I agreed to be a public preceptor because she loved me. It's not just that she took me seriously, she still does love me actually, but that she saw something in me that she responded to and that she just loves. And in a way, that's also why I became a public preceptor, agreed to become a public preceptor, was because it's quite simple really, is I just sort of love people. And I love their potential, and it's lovely for me to be here because I've got someone I ordained, Akasa Jyoti. It was my first person I ordained privately, and I'm hoping to ordain Lizzie soon, and they're sitting right here, beaming away. And in a way, it's for them that I decide to become a public preceptor, because I can see something in them that I deeply, deeply respond to, that I know in myself and I understand in myself. So when I was asked to become a public preceptor, it's very simple for me to say yes, even though you have to go through a long consultation process, and you know, there's more meetings and all the rest of it. I think that if something feels a very simple decision to make, it's worth trusting, and I've trusted that in my life, that it was simple. It was simple, that I'm grateful for what I receive. And I want to pass it on to others as much as I can. I really, really value what I've received in my own ordination. So I want to make it possible for other people to be ordained. And in a way, that's simple, and it's deep, and it's profound, and it's enough for me to live my life by. But it was very interesting, because when I did agree to become a public preceptor and I went through the consultation process, I was really moved actually that all the college wrote to me and said something. And they said either one of two things or both things. They said either congratulations or thanks for being willing to take it on, which was a little bit daunting. But I think the congratulations is that I think they knew that I would grow in that role. I think whenever you take on a greater responsibility, you grow into that responsibility. So just as Cara was saying about, you know, asking for ordination, that asking for ordination will help her grow. She'll grow into her ordination. And by the time she's grown into it fully, she'll be ordained. And I think the same is true whenever you take the next step. So, yeah, when I said yes, that I agreed to go into the, actually no, it was the night before Punyamala rang me up and said I was going to be a public preceptor, that I'd kind of been agreed. And I had this dream that I had to move into a much bigger room. And I was thinking, like, there were these huge white walls, and I was thinking, well, what will I put on the walls? Because my pictures aren't big enough. I sort of put up my old pictures, and they were quite small. And then I thought, oh, that's what you've got. In the basement, you've got a massive tanker, you know, a massive picture of White Tara. And when I went to the basement, I pulled it out, and it was an applique picture of White Tara that was made up of the fabric of everything that had gone before in my life, even past lives. And I hung up this beautiful great tanker of White Tara on the wall. And I think there's something about that, in that, you know, in order to do what I most deeply value and live by what I most deeply value, I've got to grow into that and realize that I am more than I appear to be. My ordination is more than it appeared to be. I really do feel like I'm living out the consequences of my own ordination, which I'm working out over time. It's not that I understood ordination the moment I got ordained. It's something I'm working out over time. I'm working out who I am in my potential, and I'm also working out what the order is in the order's potential. So I had this dream about this huge White Tara tanker. And so I think the congratulations is, oh, great, you can step up. Which is, of course, again, what I saw in Maitreyi, that she had to step up. In those decisions that she made. I was very lucky to both live and work with Maitreyi for quite a number of years. And I could see her, you know, making those bigger decisions, becoming more of her potential and inviting me to become my potential. So yes, there's congratulations, but then there's also, and thanks for being willing to take it on. And I was reflecting on that. I was thinking, well, what am I taking on? You know, it's like, you know, I just have a simple sort of, yes, I love people. I'm going to, you know, help them get ordained however I can. But what does that mean? And I think in the end, for me, I think it means, and from what I've seen so far, is always being willing to communicate. Because sometimes there are going to be times when I might say something that someone doesn't want to hear, like they need longer to be in the ordination process before they get ordained, or it might be that I want to help out with difficulties or even disharmony in the Sangha. There are lots of conversations on lots of sort of levels about many different things at college meetings. But I think what I really realized about my own sort of willingness to step into public ordination, public precepting, is that I've got to be willing to keep going and to keep going deeper into communication, particularly with people in the ordination process and in the order, that it's never going to be all right for me to just give up on people. And that, yeah, that in a way I'm making that commitment, a bit like Bhante was saying that, you know, he believes that everyone can be friends. It's possibility for everyone to enter into friendship. And what friendship really means is communication and being willing to communicate with each other. Sometimes he said it's like a vital mutual responsiveness across a chasm. But in a way, as a public preceptor, I can never give up on someone in the order or on someone in the ordination process, and being willing to take that communication further. So yeah, I just wanted to thank all my, you know, Maitreyi, who's not here unfortunately because she's not very well, but all my friends in the College of Public Preceptors, because it's really out of gratitude to them that I've taken this next step. And you know, just as the initiation vase that we use in the public ordination ceremony is an initiation for the person that you're ordaining. it's also, I think, an initiation for the preceptor. So all I can hope is that I'm up to the job. So, yeah, I've spoken before the bell. Amazing. I think it might be a first for me as well. It's probably because I didn't have enough time to overthink it. But now we're going to hear from Nick, who I believe is in London. And he's also asked for ordination. He's going to tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Vajratara. So I'm Nick from Northwest London. I'm 24 years old and I asked for ordination in July of this year. And I must admit that I put off thinking about this talk for a while, perhaps slightly daunted by the topic. I don't really know very clearly why I asked for ordination. So perhaps maybe I'll just talk very briefly around the point and do a very abridged biography to maybe get at the point. So my first real love in life was rock music, which upon discovery at the age of 10 turned a fairly unremarkable, mundane childhood into something really quite exciting. And I shortly thereafter stumbled upon the electric guitar, which I became obsessed with. And it wasn't really a very conscious decision. It was like something dormant had awakened in me, and almost overnight, the feeling and texture of life had changed. And it was very clear that music had become my refuge at that point. At 16, I went to study at college, and amongst the complications that come with being a teenager and the sort of emotional and psychological world that opened up, I started to become very depressed and drank very heavily. And by 17, I got very disheartened with it all and moved to my nan's cottage in Norfolk, isolated from much of civilization and sort of a world away from all that I'd known. Beer is not a stable refuge, I concluded. So as the cacophony of the city died away, I found an inner voice, a voice that I probably hadn't heard up until that point, and somehow it led me to learn to meditate. So I got my primitive 2013 iPad out and looked up videos of Ajahn Brahm, this Thai forest monk who taught me to meditate. He taught me about impermanence, about letting go, and I started to go on long walks and reflect upon my life. And I started reading and I discovered Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, and I was so inspired by it, and I decided I must write an album based on the story of the Buddha, but a modern day interpretation. And so I moved back to London and I did that, and over the next couple of years I wrote this album, released a couple of singles, and then unfortunately the band disbanded due to musical differences, but those two singles do exist out there. And well, I went back to drinking, unfortunately, and a couple of years later, I found myself in a church basement at a 12-step meeting. And I learned that what I was looking for all along was a power greater than myself, something beyond the small, self-obsessed, materialistic, nihilistic, hedonistic worldview I held. And in my program of recovery, I committed myself to this higher ideal, and for a short moment, just one short moment, I saw that no conditioned phenomenon was ever going to truly satisfy. And as William Blake puts it, you never know what is enough until you know what is more than enough. And having proven Blake correct, having sobered up, I rediscovered my interest in Buddhism and came to the London Buddhist Centre. Blake also said that the road of excess leads to the Palace of Wisdom, and I guess the LBC became my Palace of Wisdom. So I went on my first retreat, joined a study group, and remember looking at Bante's Mind Reactive and Creative. And from the first words, I instantly knew I'd been looking, I found what I'd been looking for. Sort of the clarity, the form, the depth of thought, the sort of elusive idiosyncratic accent and manner of speaking. It was so impressive and inspiring, but there was something more than that coming through. And well, from that point, I very quickly became a Mitra. I started to get to know order members. I found that Triratna's presentation of the Dharma just fit everything that I really wanted. It had this emphasis of the arts, the sciences, and well, it just became really clear that I wanted to ask for ordination. So I went on this intensive meditation retreat in July, and yeah, very quickly, by the end of it, I realised I wanted to ask for ordination. And at the time, I was reflecting on the words of William Blake, so I thought it would be apt to end with a very short verse of his. I sought my God, and my God I couldn't find. I sought my soul, and my soul eluded me. I sought to serve my brother in his need, and I found all three: my God, my soul, and thee. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Really, thank you very, very much. Really nice to see you. Really nice that you could tune in. Thank you for being so candid, as you always are. Really good, Nick. Well done. And And thank you, Cara, as well. And there you are. I can still see you over there in Sydney. So thank you to you as well. Thank you, Vajratara, for a wonderful talk, considering that you were thinking about that talk whilst washing up just a few minutes ago. And yeah, thank you, Padmavajra. So we've got nearly 700 people on the call at the moment, possibly a bit more because sometimes there's more. Well, we've definitely got more than that because we've got the whole college here at Adhisthana. So as you can see, I'm trying to speak more slowly. Padmachandra is actually smiling and giving me a thumbs up. And so I'm trying to model that as best I can. So I'm trying to show, not tell. So yes, Ratna viewer, I'll be speaking to you in a moment, but perhaps, yes, if we could all remember that we're also in German and Spanish and French, which is wonderful. Yes, so let's, there's all this appreciation as well pouring in. It's lovely, all this appreciation and love pouring in for those who've spoken, and that's really lovely. So let's go over to you. Let's zoom over to you, Ratna viewer, over there in Auckland, New Zealand. So, hello, are you there? Can you hear me?
I am. I can.
Good, good. And you've not got a New Zealand accent. Where are you from, Ratna viewer?
I'm American. I'm from Ohio.
From Ohio, right? And how long have you been ordained?
I was ordained in '99.
And when did you join the college?
Somewhere back, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I think.
And Ratna, you've been a wonderful, Ratna viewer has been a wonderful aid to the college. He brought this wonderful clarity of mind. So I'll hand over to you, Ratna viewer.
Thanks, Maitreya Bandhu. So I'll try to speak slowly. I'm going to speak tonight about this worldwide spiritual community that we're all involved with, which is based on our common Dharma training and unified by our ordination. So I've lived and practiced within 4 different Triratna Sanghas in 4 different countries, starting in the early 1990s at Aryaloka Retreat Center in Newmarket, New Hampshire. I then moved to Cambridge, England in 1996 to join Windhorse Training and train for ordination there. I was ordained in '99, like I just mentioned. In 2004, I moved to Australia, where I joined the Sydney Buddhist Center Sangha. And in 2011, I moved to New Zealand, where I joined the Auckland Buddhist Center Sangha, which is where I now live, in Auckland, New Zealand. So each of these situations has been uniquely different, while also being distinctly Triratna. There's a centrality of going for refuge of 3 jewels, which sits at the center of our tradition. We have a common language for the doctrine of the Dharma around the central insight of the Buddha, Praticca Samuppada, conditioned co-production. And we endeavor to the same ethical standards, whether 5 or 10 precepts. And there's a basic pattern of puja, group study, meditation, and the cultivation of spiritual friendship within Triratna. And lastly, the arts, which are also uniquely valued compared to other Buddhist traditions. So in What is the Western Buddhist Order, Bhante comments that all this creates something that is very hard to really define. That it adds up to a certain atmosphere or attitude that is found within the Triratna Buddhist community and nowhere else. And that it is something held within our network of spiritual friendships. And this has been my experience. And personally, I'm very thankful to him for this gift. When I moved to Cambridge, England, we gathered with one another to salute the shrine for morning meditations, for shared meals, practicing puja with its concluding mantras and the Heart Sutra, and the way people reached out in friendship. I was very familiar with this pattern. It was a similar pattern to when I was living at Arialoka, something I valued and appreciated very much. It's a pattern of practice and understanding that has helped me immensely. When I moved to Cambridge, England to join Windhorse Trading in 1996, we had over 25 different nationalities with their many cultural differences. Not only were people from different countries and different cultures, but there were also sociological differences in schooling. Some of us were middle class, others working class, and some were English public schoolers, which actually means they went to private school. There were psychological differences between feeling types and doctrine followers, savers and spenders, introverts and extroverts. I studied economics, maths, and sciences at university, but many of my new friends in Cambridge were artists and poets. I never got good grades in my English classes at school, and it took me quite a few months to realize that the American and English spelling of words can be slightly different. Someone once tried to teach me the nuances and varied uses of the English slang ta, which I've never really understood. But luckily, I didn't have to. I went to Cambridge to train for ordination, to dive deeper into this not really definable, but certain atmosphere or attitude of Triratna, to explore what it meant for my life. I went to participate in this shared common practice, working together with friends, attending Mitra study, building GFR groups, coming together and living with people very different from myself on the outside. But on the inside, we were all trying to find the same path through the same human predicament. Another fond memory of my ordination training and early years in the movement were my drives to Pamaloka for retreats. Our van full of guys arriving in time for a Friday meal, which was always an Indian curry. And that not really definable, but certain atmosphere or attitude was extended into our retreats. It flowed from our working together to being on retreat together, and then back from the retreat together into working together. It was pretty amazing. And I'm not sure I appreciated it fully in the moment. I'm sure that Triratnaloka offers a similar retreat experience for women, as would other situations of living and working together. Things have changed since then in many, many ways. Windhorse Trading has unfortunately closed, and I now visit Sudarshanaloka in New Zealand for most of my retreats. But we still carpool to retreats, and the pattern of practice and my network of friendships has a similar taste. We use the word commonality to talk about this certain atmosphere or attitude, which is Triratna. But I was talking with some friends the other day about what other words come to mind. Commonality may sound cold and abstract. It might suggest to you that everyone becomes the same. But in my experience, as people practice, they become vividly themselves without needing to be different or the same, which makes them very different indeed. Someone suggested warmer words like loyalty or fidelity, which highlight our commitment to connecting with one another and the network of friendship that holds it all together. Perhaps this commonality is similar to culture, and that it is hard to define, yet always distinctly there. And we talked about whether this distinctiveness is something caught rather than taught. For some people, words like loyalty and fidelity might not work to describe what we are talking about. But what word best describes this individual willingness, this individual choice to make the effort required to speak through a shared and common Dharma system? Because it does require an effort. And what word best describes how it feels when you travel halfway around the world or simply meet somebody very different from yourself, and you find yourselves together, practicing puja on retreat, reciting the Heart Sutra, or chanting our concluding mantras, and you feel a connectedness and unity despite your differences. Sticking with the word commonality, as I trained for ordination, I learned this shared pattern of Dharma practice and Dharma understanding, which characterizes and defines our Triratna Sangha. I entered into the network of friendships that holds it and is informed by it. A commonality that helps to transcend difference and brings unity to our worldwide Buddhist order. For me, it is very important that order members from one culture are able to recognize order members from another culture as practicing the same Dharma methods and having a similar Dharma understanding. For me, it is very important that order members I train and ordain in Australia and New Zealand are easily recognized as fellow order members around the world, not because they have Buddhist names and wear a similar kesa, but because their Buddhist name and the kesa they wear symbolizes their commitment to our shared practice and shared understanding of the Dharma. When order members and GFR Mitras visit New Zealand and stop by our center, I hope these visitors recognize our Auckland Sangha as their Sangha. And I hope our Auckland Sangha recognize these visitors as belonging to our Sangha also. For me, this is due to our fidelity to this certain atmosphere or attitude, which is Triratna. This unity in a world so prone to division feels very beautiful and rare to me. And I love this unity. And in the college, one of our responsibilities is to make sure that everyone training for ordination learns this language of shared Dharma practice and Dharma understanding, which Bhante has given us. It is not simply that we work to deepen our going for refuge, but also that our going for refuge is in the context of the Triratna Buddhist order. So thanks, everyone. And I'm going to pass it on now to Solveig, who's going to tell us why she asked for ordination from Germany.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a great honor to be here. So yeah, my name is Solveig. I'm 28 years old, and I'm part of the Berlin Sangha at Buddhistische Store Berlin. I asked for ordination around about 1 year ago. I'll briefly talk about 3 experiences that stand for the different reasons why I asked for ordination. So the first reason, when I was about to graduate from school, I read a sign that was being installed in one of our school corridors. It said something like, education's most important result is self-awareness or insight into oneself. Reading this sign, I thought to myself, that's what my life is essentially about. My life is about becoming self-aware, about gaining insight. And I knew that in some sense, I would be setting up my life in regard to this purpose. So asking for ordination was, I guess, just a logical step towards the realization of this purpose. Reason number 2. After a very difficult time in my life, after moving to Berlin in the year 2018, I was seeking out a place and people I could practice the Dharma with. I already considered myself to be leading a spiritual life, but I was still missing the right context for it. I had a strong longing for real and truthful connection, for real friendship. For this reason, I had a look at the Buddhist gate one day and accidentally, without knowing, bumped into the Saturday morning classes break in between the meditation and the talk. When I stepped into the Buddhist gate's door, I was saluted and shown around by Tara Palita, who for whatever reason was standing right in front of me, just as if he was waiting there to pick me up. meeting him as I reflected upon this encounter later, felt like meeting a very, very old friend of mine I knew for longer than this lifetime. Another day, Lalit Ratna asked me for my name during a Tuesday Sangha night. As I spelled my name to him, he wrote it into his little notebook. And as the ink sank into the blank page, I felt that so did my name sink into his heart. This very night, I thought, this place here is where I'm coming home. This is my Sangha, and this is my spiritual movement. This was even before I became a Mitra. Third reason. Once reflecting on what it would mean to me to wear the kesa, I felt that if I was to be wearing it at a point in time, it would mean to me that I am putting myself into the service of others. That the moment this kesa would hang around my neck, I would not be my main concern anymore, but that I would lead a life that would be much more in tune with the Bodhisattva ideal, in tune with reality, in tune with the well-being of all beings, and being set into the right context. So these three reasons or anecdotes sum up to a big extent why I asked for ordination. And they become, the meaning of them grows bigger and deeper every day. I am most grateful for having found this movement and the inspiring and most precious people that fill it with meaning. I am most grateful for the Berlin Sangha with all its amazing individuals, for being able to be a friend on the path and for having friends on the path. I'm also very happy for having found a movement where the going for refuge is essential and at its very heart of it, and for all that that entails. Coming to know Sangharakshita more and more, I feel more and more devotion, love, and reverence towards him. And I am happy that, because of his inspiration and insight, I can be part of a movement where the spirit of the three jewels is at its center, vivid and alive.
That's great.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Solveig. That's really, really good. Really lovely to hear about you talk about Bhante there at the end, because
yeah,
here I am. It's almost like he's listening to you. Really lovely. And of course, you're our only speaker who's been having to give your talk in your second language, in a second language. So really, you should have done it in German, and we should have translated it. Perhaps we'll do that next time. But thank you very much, and thank you, Ratnaviewer. It's lovely, isn't it, to be able to go from Auckland, New Zealand over to Berlin like that so easily. And that just shows this whole point that Ratnaviewer was bringing up about our commonality, that we're one Sangha, we're one network of friends, whether we're Solveig there smiling in your nice pink jumper, whether you're me here in Again House or the Preceptors College or anyone else who's here. So we're going to have a 10-minute break now. So this is your chance to do whatever you need to do. Get yourself a drink. If you're English, you'll, like me, you'll want a cup of tea. Get yourself something. I think what I'll do is I'll stay here and chat to anyone who wants to chat, and we'll come back in 10 minutes time. I don't know how we'll do that, because it's depending where you are in the world, but from whatever time it is in your part of the world, Todd in London, or Eric, or Sidrishti in Australia, or Siladasa in Melbourne, or Vajrajyoti, it's 10 minutes from now, we'll start again. Yeah. 15:15. Oh, 15:15 in England, yeah. Wherever you are. 15:15 wherever you are, apparently. Okay, so I'll start saying hello to some more people as we go. Welcome. Do you need to go? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So who else is here? I don't know. Todd's gone. Some people from Taraloka. Hello, Taraloka. Glad to see you. Who else is here? Really lovely to read the messages of appreciation. It's really worth doing this just to see all those messages of appreciation.
Maitreya Bandhu, do you want people to be able to unmute themselves?
Yes, if you can. Kema Bandhu's gone to get me a cup of tea, so if you could do that, that'd be great. Who's there?
So people can unmute themselves if they want to and talk to Maitreya Bandhu.
Yeah,
Maitreya Bandhu.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Any news on Satyamala?
Satyamala?
She wasn't too well.
No, I don't know, I'm afraid. No, I don't know. Where are you tuning in from? Oh, Norwich?
Yes.
Are you well?
Yeah, I've been here for 13 years, I think.
Oh, really? Right, right. Nice to see you. Really nice to see you. Yeah, nice to see you. Who else is here?
Hello, Maitreya Bandhu. I'm Adolfo from Cuernavaca. Hi.
Hello, hello. You're from Cuernavaca?
Yes, Mexico.
How are you?
I'm fine. Just a few words to say that I'll be visiting next year the UK retreats, and I would be very pleased to meet you. It happens that I am also a poet, and I'll be very happy to share some of my work with you.
Yes. So when are you coming, Adolfo?
I'm not sure yet. I'm still working on the dates and trying to build all the conditions so I can go there and spend a few months. If I'm crossing the ocean, I would like to spend in the UK quite a few months.
When you know, make sure you write to me. Nagapriya can give you my address, and then we'll make sure we meet up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome, Adolfo.
Thank you.
Great. That's great. Who else is?
Hi, Maitreya Bandhu. It's Alev.
Who's that?
Alev.
I can't see
From
you.
Great Malvern.
Ah, hello. Haven't
Hello.
seen you for a long time. You're just down the road.
I know. so near, but yet so far.
Yes, indeed. How are you doing? I haven't seen you for a while.
Not too bad. Yeah, I'm doing okay actually. Yeah, just kind of, just doing lots of stuff on Zoom. So pleased about that. There's lots on offer.
Yeah. Are you still coming here to Adhisthana?
Yeah, when there's things available to go to. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's mostly an older place, isn't it? And looking forward to that moment when I get ordained. So
yes, indeed. We're going to be
go
doing
there more
events
often
here soon as well.
Yeah.
So, anyway, really nice to see you, Alev.
Yeah,
it's been a
you
long
too.
time.
Lovely.
Really nice to see you. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you. Yeah.
Who else is around that can say hello?
Hello there, Maitreya Bandhu.
Oh, there's Mita. Hello, Mita.
Hello. It's lovely to see you in this big context. It's really great. Have you got your cup of tea?
Yana Archer's sister. Yana Archer's sister. So if anyone else is...
Yes. Hello. I remember you as well.
Oh, hi.
How are you doing, Mita?
Yes.
We just listened to Yana Archer's life story yesterday.
Yes, I asked him if he could tape it because I want to listen to it as well.
Yeah.
So yes, it must have been lovely. Are you having a good weekend there?
Young girl.
Yes. Oh, it's brilliant. Are you having a good weekend there?
Yeah, it's very, very good.
It's so lovely to see you in Bante's room. It's so lovely to be able to see his room again.
Yes.
Yes. It's delightful.
It's still got a real atmosphere being in this room. When I looked on screen, I thought Bante would come and sit down there. It was almost like I'm supposed to be introducing him.
Yes, well, even through Zoom and through people's talks, you can feel his presence. It's very much alive. It's delightful.
That's
really.
Welcome, Rita.
Moving talks. Thank you. Lovely to see you too. I'll let somebody else talk.
Who else is there? Hello, Rob. Why don't I say to you hello to you? we've been talking about earlier. Are you there? Anybody else there or somebody else? Speak to me.
Hello, Maitreya Bandhu.
Ah, who's that? Salvador. Where are you
Hello.
tuning in from?
Where?
Where?
In Mexico, Mexico City, in my community.
That's great. You enjoying the evening?
Yes, beautiful, really inspiring.
Good, good. Well, welcome. That's great that you could be here. That's great.
Thank you.
Esther, you've got your hand up. Do you mean to put your hand up? You just got your photograph and your hand up. Just checking. You can see the Preceptors College having tea. If you're interested. How about you, Todd? Do you want to say hello to me? Where have you gone? Ah, there you are.
I'm back. How are you guys? Really good talk. Really enjoying it.
Yeah, good, good. And what made you decide to go to New York? If you want to tell 220,
to tell 16 people. Well, I'm from America, so eventually I had to go home after 23 years.
Right, yeah, of course. Well, we'll miss you.
I have to intervene here. I'm in New York. Hello, Todd. Let's get in touch.
Hey, good to see you.
Santa. We suddenly got there you go. There's a New York connection. So that's Todd and Anta Todd.
Cool. Good.
See you in a month.
See you soon.
Well, we'll miss you from the LBC, Todd.
Thanks. I'll miss you.
I also wanted to say, sorry, Maitreya Bandhu, we're running the journey and the guide here.
Are you?
And people are loving it. They're really, really enjoying it.
Oh, good.
It's really going deep for people. So thank you.
I should hold the book up, shouldn't I?
Plug. He didn't pay me to say that.
Yeah, it's not an advertising.
It's genuine.
Actually, just the adverts, just keenly disguised. Anyway, really nice to see you, Ananta. I haven't seen you for a long time. Nice to see you. Yeah, nice to see you. Who else is here?
Hello, Maitreya Bandhu.
Who's that?
This is Prasada Chitta in California.
Oh,
it's good to see you.
Chitta.
Yeah.
I can't quite recognize you with your sunglasses on.
Well, it's quite sunny here.
Ah, now I recognize you. How are you doing?
I'm well. Yeah, I'm at Dharmadhara. We've got leaves falling from the sky or the trees. And I'm far from the retreat center. It's longer than a 10-minute walk, so I might as well hang out with you.
Oh, lovely. How lovely. Really nice to see. How are you? You all right? How's it going over there?
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, we feel for everybody who's isolated during the pandemic and everything, but living in community at a retreat center, you forget.
You were building it when I last talked to you about it.
Yeah, we're still building it.
Of course, I bet you are. And there's
Wonderful
Manisha.
to
Hi
see
there,
you.
Manisha. Nice to see you. Give us away.
Hello.
Wait, you're in Sweden, are you, Manisha?
I'm actually in bed in Sweden.
Can you
How
say
much
that?
detail would you like?
Yeah, well, so am I.
That's two in bed. We could do a sort of count how many people are in bed. I've just got a couple.
It's just a bit late for some of us old folks on the.
What time is it in
continent.
Germany?
Yeah.
It's 10:15 here in Sweden at night.
Okay, yeah.
It's bedtime.
Yeah, it's 10:15.
Yeah,
We're
past
Buddhists, we're
bedtime.
normally in bed by this time.
Exactly.
The things we do for the Dharma.
Indeed.
I know.
It's 9:15 here. It's getting late for some of us. Anyway, I think we're starting to gather
Put
again.
my feet in a bowl of water, keep me awake.
So we're going to start gathering again. So everybody in the Preceptors College, if you can then get your seats, take your seats again. If anyone's get their cup of tea, I've just had mine very kindly brought to me. So we'll just start gathering again. There'll be just a few minutes, just a minute or two before we start again.
Hello, Kernavapi.
Yeah. So just to
Hello, sweetheart. Lovely to see you, Paduma.
Hello, Paduma Chitta. Lovely to see you. Sajajoti here.
That's great. So yes, here I am again in Bante's living room. It's very touching for me being here in Bante's living room and having Bante's chair next to me. So I'm going to hand over now to Vajrajyoti over there in New Zealand to talk about the next part of the evening.
Yes, so the next part of the evening or morning is a question and answer session. So the panel will be the 3 order members that have already spoken, the college members, and 2 more college members will be joining them. So that will be Surya Gita, who is living in Queensland in Australia, Brisbane, and Nagapriya, who is living in Mexico. So there we can see Sudrishti. Did I say your right name? Sorry if I didn't. No, sorry, I said Surya Gita. I meant Sudrishti. And there's Nagapriya. Hello. So I think, yeah, so if people want to ask questions, you need to put your virtual hand up, and then we will say your name and ask you to put your question to the panel. And I think you want to say something about that, Maitreya Bandhu.
Yes, thank you. Just to say, we're wanting to make as much time for questions as we can. So a few like etiquette, what would you call them? Ground rules or something like that for questions, some etiquette. So a question is not a statement with a question mark at the end. So it does need to be an actual question, not a statement. It's very tempting to use this chance to make statements, but let's just have questions. If you can be concise as possible, that would be great. And we've got the mute button here. so we can, anyway, that was a joke. That was an English joke. English jokes don't always translate. But yeah, so let's have, if you can, concise questions. We'll unmute you for a question. If you're too shy, would rather not speak to at the moment over, well, it's probably still over 700, over a lot of people. You can put your question into chat if you want to. There you see the chat, and Kema Bandhu here will keep an eye on chat, and then he'll ask me your questions. So if you'd rather do that, that's fine as well. So I think that's all I was going to say. So yeah, let's have some. Yes, we tried to have a range of people asking questions. So we'll go across genders, we'll go across continents, we'll go from order members to Mitras who've asked for ordination. So Gunaketa, I think you were the first hand that I saw. Hi there, over there in Oslo. Really good to see you. So let's hear your question first.
Hello, Maitreya, do you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Great. So yes, as you said, we're out here in the sticks in Norway, and I wonder if you have any comments on how to establish contact with potential preceptors and Kalyana Mitras. First of all, when traveling is difficult, and also order members seem to be quite busy in their own situations. So there's little, it's not so easy to reach out to small situations, and also with spaces on retreat centers being limited. And, well, yes, how do you advise us to proceed in the sticks?
Great, thank you, Gunaketa, thank you. So I think let's go to Vadutara and Padmavajra first for that, and then let's see, there might be other opinions on the panel as well.
I've just been handed the microphone here. I think one thing is about this you can be put off because you think order members are too busy. And I had this when I was training for ordination when I was a Mitra, and I remember being worried that order members were very busy people, and they wouldn't want to spend time with me, or talk about my Dharma questions or anything like that. And I remember actually Taraka coming to visit from T. Ratnaloka. She came to Sheffield where I was living, and I said, "Oh, I'm so grateful that you have agreed to meet up with me." And she said, "No, you don't understand. All I'm waiting for is someone who really, really wants to practice the Dharma. And for them, I'll go quite far. I'll do a lot for them. That's what I want in my life, is I want to communicate with people who really want to practice the Dharma. And I remember that in myself. I'll go quite a long way, either physically or just in terms of time, for people who really, really want to practice the Dharma and really want to communicate with me on that basis, because it's what I really enjoy doing in my life. That's kind of what my purpose of what I do in my life is. So I suppose I just encourage you that if you really, really want to practice the Dharma, to take any opportunity that you find, even write to someone, even a small connection, because people will respond to going for refuge, and they'll do quite a lot for that.
Does anyone else from the Padma or somebody else from the panel say anything?
Guna Katie, very nice to see you. At the beginning of your talk, you talked about helping. I might have got this wrong, but were you saying, how do we help people become Kalyana Mitras and preceptors out in the sticks? It's a very, very good question. I think actually the way it has happened in the past, certainly in Europe, is that order members who have been really serious about wanting to do that, they've come on the men's side, they've come on retreat with us at Padmaloka. I think this thing that Rantavua was talking about imbibing a culture, I think you have to spend some time in that culture, I think, for that to happen effectively. You have to catch that kind of atmosphere to get that kind of trust and confidence. So I look forward to seeing you at Padmaloka soon.
Padma, so I wasn't talking so much about me, and I will be coming on in January. I very much look forward and hope the Koi won't. But I was more thinking about the GFR Mitras, who are, we are 2 order members, 1 man and a woman still in Oslo. And so people are trying to go and find potential Kalyana Mitras and potential preceptor, but it is difficult to get a contact, because when they do reach out, it takes a long time, and sometimes they don't get replies, because understandably, because...
Okay, good, okay, that's great. Just to remind us all again, and that's something I have to remind myself, is to speak slowly, remember, we're in 3 languages. Nagapriya, did you have anything, a brief thing to add to anything that we've just said there from Guna Ketu? Can we unmute Nagapriya? Are you there, Nagapriya? You've gone. There he is.
Yeah, I was muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I'd probably ask you, Guna Ketu, if I was in Oslo, I'd ask you what should I do? But you're talking about being out in the sticks. I think Oslo is probably about an 1.5 hour flight from London, something like that. In Latin America, we've got people in Brazil and in Venezuela. And not only are they physically very, very distant from any other parts of our community, it's also quite difficult for many of them to travel. So one of the things that I would say is to try and approach specific people and really to make an effort to connect with somebody. I find that often people give up quite easily. When they want to make contact with someone, they don't get a reply for the first time, so they don't try again. Or they just assume that they won't get a reply, so they never even make the effort in the first place. And in my own ordination training, I met Subhuti quite early on, who at that time was probably the most busy order member there was. But through making a lot of effort, I was able to get to know him quite well, but I had to make a lot of effort to do that. So I think it's taking that responsibility and wanting to get to know a Kalyana Mitra or potential preceptor and being persistent.
Thank you. Thank you. Jyoti.
I just wondering where Ratnaviewer is. I can't see that he's been spotlighted. So Ratnaviewer, come back to the spotlight, please. Oh, hello, there you are. Paramachita, you have a question.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, it's just a wee question. A lot of what happens within the ordination process is group related. So we sit around and we do a lot of group work. Has there been any discussion of how to help people who may not do groups very well because of other limitations? People maybe on the scale, people like myself who found it almost excruciating to do. Is there something that's being talked about in that way?
Thank you. That is a really great question. Personally, I don't know the answer. I'm not sure which of the panel would any of you like to volunteer to answer that question?
I'll say something. I can't think of specific discussions generally about that, but I am aware a number of times when we've been talking about particular men at Padmaloka and noting their difficulties within study groups and things like that, and that but they got ordained, and that we do, when we notice people with particular difficulties, we do really search quite deeply to see they're going for refuge. Yeah. But I can't recall a sort of general discussion about that specific area. Maybe we should do that. But it's certainly, what I notice at Padmaloka, I think there is quite a high level sense of attention in terms of looking at whoever the individual is coming along and trying to understand what they're working with.
Thank you, Padmavajra. Yeah, you can hear me, that's great. I just saw a question from Anne, I think it's Anne in London, is that right? She asked, she's typed into the chat, which is a good question for all of you, is how do you know when someone is ready for ordination? Let's go to you, Sudrishti, first. We haven't heard from you yet. How do you know when someone's ready for ordination, Sudrishti? Unmute you. Oops, we're still muted. That's it.
Yes, it's a very, gosh, it's it's very hard to answer that because it's not there's no sort of formula in which I can answer it. I think it's very much a personal responsiveness to sort of resonating with somebody else's going for refuge. I think in a way that you could, I often hear the expression, oh, I feel like I've been talking to an order member. And that would certainly be one way of describing it. So a sense of a mutual understanding about what we're discussing in the deepest sense of the word, that we're actually relating from a shared basis of going for refuge.
Anybody? Thank you, Sudrishti. Anyone else from College? Ratnaviewer, do you want to, whilst we're over there in Australasia, do you want to say something in response? It's an absolutely crucial question, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And I agree with Sudrishti that it can sometimes be hard to understand. One thing I will say, which I think is interesting, is that sometimes when people think about ordination, they almost think about it like an interview. that they're going to be interviewed for whether they're ready or not. But I actually find that the question of someone's going for refuge is a learning process for myself and for order members that engage in those discussions, because we're learning how to recognize what going for refuge looks like more deeply in another person. So if we're ordained, we've kind of been told that what somebody else is doing kind of and what we're doing resonates. And so that, you know, our going for refuge is similar to their going for refuge and their understanding. But I love the process of talking about readiness for ordination. I find it educational. I find it widening. I find it very, very interesting. So I love that idea of mutual responsiveness. And when Vajratara talked about anybody that's keen on the Dharma would kind of have her attention, I think it's that kind of liveliness and that spark which can ignite between people, which is, I don't know, just you feel it, don't you? And then you start talking about it. And then when enough people are talking about it, someone gets ordained.
Thank you, Ratnavira.
Thank you, Ratnavira and Sudrashti. Sadhujyoti, I know you've been waiting a little while. I'd like to go to Claire from Australia first. Claire, you have a question.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm a member of the Gender Diverse Sangha, and being in Australia, I'm a bit kind of distant from what's happening over in England, so I don't often get to hear where things are up to. For me, it's very important that I feel like I'm joining a unified order. And so the kind of gendered nature of ordination has been a bit challenging. And I'd like to hear kind of people's thoughts on, I don't know, the evolution of the process or where things are headed. I'd just be interested to hear people's thoughts and what's happening, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. That's a really important question. And I think Vajratara may be willing to have a go at this question. She's certainly holding the mic.
There's a reason that I've been given the mic to hold, which is that, we have been having on this college meeting some discussion around this particular area. I've got a number of friends who are gender diverse and or trans and identify as non-binary. And I sort of do recognise that, you know, it is difficult for those people that, a lot of our ordination training is in either women or for women or men. And then we've sort of expanded that to say, well, you know, you really do come along if you identify as a woman, or if you, from my point of view, or if you would like to train in the women's wing, or if you are trans feminine, you know, and it's sort of expanding the definition because we want to welcome as many people as possible. And some people can just fit in with that. We've got a number of people who come at Tiratnaloka, where I live, where we run going for refuge retreats for women, but that we've also had trans women on our retreats and people who identify as non-binary. But so for some people that's just doesn't quite work, and it feels incongruous to them to train in the women's or the men's wing, as we call it. And so we've got kind of two values. We know that actually training in single sex context is very, very important for quite a number of people. And well, for most people, they really benefit from that. So we don't want to get rid of the single sex context, but at the same time, we want to welcome people who we recognize just don't, you know, it doesn't feel congruent to be in either the women's or the men's training. So what we're doing at the moment is we at Adhisthana here, we've been running gender diverse retreats for gender diverse people. There's weekends for people who are in the ordination process, who are gender diverse in the ordination process. And we hope to make those retreats longer and longer. At the moment, there's not quite enough people going on those retreats to justify having a longer retreat. But we know that there will be in time. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on. And the other thing is that we know that for some people, their ordination process just won't fit into the usual mold. And that could be for many reasons, actually. It could be because of their health. It could be for a lot of different reasons, but it could also be because of them being gender diverse. And what we found is that people in that category it's very, very individual. So they're going to need a very, very individual response. What someone needs who's grown up as a woman, who's becoming trans-masculine, is going to need something very different from someone who is non-binary completely. You know, there's lots and lots of different sort of permutations of people's ordination process at any different time, because they might start off training at Tiratnaloka and then want to go to Padmaloka. They might not want to go to Padmaloka, but they might not fit in at Tiratnaloka. You know, there's lots of different permutation, and we've really recognised that each of those people will need an individual response. But if they're going for refuges and sincere and they really want to be ordained, we really will help them in any way that we can. But it might be a bit of a bespoke ordination process at the moment. I hope that makes sense. It's a bit of a ramble.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it made sense. And yeah, there's been a lot of comments in the chat section expressing interest about this. So I think it was a really great question to ask, Claire.
Actually, just, I don't know if I'm still unmuted, but there is one thing to say, which is that also we are going to make sure that there's someone who you can ask for ordination who particularly will respond to you, so that you don't have to ask the men's or the women's team wherever you are. Some countries don't have a men's and a women's team, but we will have someone who will be a point of contact for anyone wanting to ask for ordination. So in the UK, that's me. Just to say, if you know anyone who's a bit nervous about asking for ordination because they're non-binary, they can ask me, not because I'm a woman, but because I'm really happy to talk to them about it.
Great, thank you. Satyajyoti, you've had your hand up for a long time. Sorry, we've been a while getting to you.
Thank you, Maitreya Bandhu. Yes, thank you very much. Am I unmuted now? Can people hear me? Great, okay. Yeah, one of the questions I have been reflecting about recently has to do with the power mode and the love mode, which is a very important teaching that we got from our teacher. And, you know, it strikes me so much how sometimes it's not easy to tell from the outside how people are working, you know, whether we are working from the power mode or the love mode. And I am part of the ordination team in Mexico, and I recently became a private preceptor. And sometimes from this position, we understand situations from different perspectives, and we can make decisions and whatever that can be interpreted by others as we using the power mode. I'm sure it's mostly not the case, but sometimes it comes across like that. So my question has to do with how can we do as preceptors or as ordination teams to convey more clearly that we are acting from the love mode, and how can we make sure that the power mode doesn't get in the way of our responsibilities with the order and the movement?
Thank you, Satyajyoti. Thank you. We've just been discussing that. I can't remember whether it's today or yesterday at the college, so that's a very timely question. Padmavajra, you might want to say something about that first, and then we'll hand on. Just to remind us all to remember to speak slowly.
Thank you very much, Maitreya. Thank you very much, Maitreya Bandhu. It's a great question and a very large question. I do think when people use the word power mode and love mode, we need to ask people to define their terms, because I think these words are used so loosely. You know, when Bhante talks about the love mode in the 10 pillars of Buddhism, the way he talks about the first precept, it's quite clear that just observing the first precept is a very tall order, according to his vision of what love really is, you know, where he talks about love being the expression of a profound imaginative identification with others, and that love, it actually is really far too weak a word to describe what this love really is. He says even the word Maitri, the Sanskrit word Maitri, doesn't do it justice because it's such a hard, you know, he's really talking about the transcendental nature of real love, which he describes as a protective, maturing, loving kindness that has the same effect as the sun on flowers and fruits and trees, on the spiritual being of living beings. And the kind of love that we're trying to generate in the love mode is that kind of love which encourages others to grow and develop and change. And that kind of love actually can be quite scary when you're actually on the end of it. I've had Bhante look at me a few times with real love, and I've never been looked at like that by anybody else, where I really felt I was really being seen very, very deeply. So if we talk about the love mode, let's have that in mind. The power mode is the absolute opposite of that. It has the effect of controlling, manipulating, and deadening the being, others' being, if you like. And so I think whenever you're accused of power mode or whatever, try to understand, well, what do you mean by that? Is this a sort of political statement, a sociological statement? Do you know what Sangharakshita meant by the love mode and the power mode? And really, I remember one occasion hearing about an ordination course in Guhyaloka. It was the last ordinations that Bhante did there, and there was a new order member complaining about the power mode that was going on in his centre. And interestingly enough, Bhante's response was, well, wouldn't it be better to look at whether or not you're acting in the love mode or not? It's so easy to accuse others of operating in the power mode, but does that not mask perhaps that, well, how is my love mode? Am I really doing that in my life? Certainly, as preceptors, well, I would say every single order member. In fact, I would even say anybody who regards themselves as a Buddhist, you have to be very aware of the impact you have on other people. Of course you do. You have to take that into account. And sometimes you are unaware and you do impact negatively, and of course you have to confess and apologize and all the rest of it. But for me, the most important thing in my own life is to not complain whether or not others are doing the power mode on me, is to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to practice in the love mode. That's what being committed to the first precept really means. And I think that's also the point of liberation. I think this is the real point of liberation. I spent so much time in India, and of course, Buddhist people in India come from the most oppressed community in India. And it's so interesting what Dr. Ambedkar demanded of his followers was that they took responsibility for their consciousness, for their life. Yes, Dr. Ambedkar was very, very critical of the society around him, but in some ways he was more critical of his own community. He was more demanding of his own community. Do not put up with this oppression. Live a life of freedom. Go for refuge to the Buddha. Practice the first precept. So yes, it is an important area, but let's be very clear what we mean about it, what we mean by love mode and power mode. And let's all of us commit ourselves to living the love mode as fully as possible.
Thank you, Padma Jyoti. I'll hand over.
I note we've got about 10 minutes to go. There's a few questions in chat, I think, but Swade, you've put your hand up. I don't know where you're from, so if you wouldn't mind saying and then saying your question.
Hi, I'm from Australia. Thank you to everyone who's spoken today. It's been inspiring. The Mitras that we heard speak were actually quite young, but from my experience in different GFR groups, generally the age is much older. And looking at the people attending today, the age level, we're quite mature. Do we have a problem as an organisation going forward that we have an aging? Are we an aging organisation? And there's been a lot of comments in the chat about how we would like to open up the GFR process so it's not so gender delineated. Is that something that's not attractive to young people? Is that turning younger people off? What are we doing about attracting younger people?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. I'm looking at the panel, hoping one of you is going to say, yep, that's the question I've been waiting for. If not, I will ask Nagapriya to see what he thinks about this.
Well, I think the question of the aging order is something that is in a lot of people's minds, and it's certainly something that I've been thinking about. And I know that, for instance, Maitreya Bandhu and others at the London Buddhist Centre have been thinking very carefully about how to engage younger people. I'm pleased to say that where I am, there is quite a reasonable number of young people coming along to our centre. And even this year we had a young man ordained who's 25. So there's hope, but I personally would like to see a lot more people in their 20s and 30s coming into our community and getting ordained. Padmavajra, I think, mentioned that, or he didn't mention, but I think he was ordained when he was about 18. Is that right, Padmavajra? 19 maybe? And that is not the norm now. I don't know if anybody has the answer as to why that is the case, and why. Jai Devi's just remembering me as a very young guy in Manchester, which is true, in my early 20s. So I think it is something that we really need to give attention to, younger people. I'm not convinced myself that young people are put off by single-sex activities, if that was the suggestion. I would like to say the opposite, and particularly here in Mexico, my experience is that younger men really value and benefit from developing relationships with other men, and particularly older men. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Nagapriya. I think what we'll do, we'll just have, we had one message in the chat, I think it was John from Sydney, and he asked this question: how do you maintain inspiration on the spiritual path? So I don't know whether we can manage this. It's a really great question to finish with. Why don't we hear from each of the panel, just one sentence? How do you maintain inspiration on the spiritual path? Who shall I pick on first? Vadutara, you're very quick on your feet. One sentence.
I'm really getting it with my entry into the college today. I think attending to my inner life and depth of communication with friendship, making sure that in a way there's a translation between the two, between the depths of my inner life and being able to share that with friends, sustains me on the spiritual path.
That's wonderful. Padmavajra, you're next to the microphone.
Actually, the word that's come to mind is beauty. It's the beauty of my sadhana, which I do every day. It's the beauty of Metta Bhavana. It's the incredible beauty of people, the beauty of people opening up to the Dharma. That's it, really. I just live for that.
That's great. Sudrishti, over there in Australia. Just unmute Sudristi. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, what came to my mind, John, when I saw your question was, yes, the inspiration can come and go, especially when times are hard in your life. But Shraddha can be consistent. So just that depth of confidence, and you can bring to mind the effects that you've seen in your practice and the effects that you've seen in others of their practice. And yes, so the inspiration, that can be the bubbles on the surface, but Shraddha is the depths. And the other thought I had was that doing practice for others always does a lot for my inspiration.
Thank you, Sudristi, thank you. And Ratna Viewer in Auckland.
Thanks. I wouldn't have answered this question this way a month ago or 2 months ago, but lately, surprisingly enough, I find myself saying that contemplation of the Buddha and recollection of the people that have gone before me helps me to maintain my inspiration. And I've found that has worked.
And Nagapriya, to finish off.
The word that just came to mind was curiosity, maintaining curiosity about the Dharma in particular, and recognizing that I haven't fully understood it and there's still more to know.
Thank you, Nagapriya, and thank you all of you on the panel. Thank you to everyone as well who's been asking questions. I know that we haven't managed to answer all of your questions. There's lots more questions. There's questions about diversity, there's questions about race, there's questions about single sex. There's so many questions. We have got them in the chat and we will keep them. This was a bit of an experiment today. It's the first time we've done an event like this for order members and those who've asked for ordination. So we're going to finish by handing over to Shantimukta. We started with Malini leading us in the refuges and precepts, because going for refuge and that expressed in ethical behavior, as Padmavajra said, not other people's ethical behavior and whether they're living it up to it, but whether we are. So we're committing ourselves to going for refuge through the three jewels, expressing that in our lives. So Malini led us in that to start us off. And she's been ordained for 52 years, I think she said. And we're going to hand on now to Shantimukta. How long have you been ordained, Shantimukta?
5 weeks.
5 weeks. So you're one of the newest Dharmacharanis. It's really lovely. I've never met you, I don't think, Shantimukta. Really lovely to see you on the screen in Vermont. So you're going to conclude with the transference of merits, because we're doing all this for the welfare of all. So I'll hand over to you, Shantimukta.
Thank you. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings, my personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit in all 3 ways I give up without regard to myself for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace.
Thank you, Shantimukta. Really lovely to finish with you leading us in the transference of merits. Really lovely to see you all. Here I am in Bante's living room. This is, in effect, in a sense, where it all began, where Triratna began with Bante. And really lovely to finish with you, Shantimukta, who's just been ordained just 5 weeks over there in the US. So That's really, really special. So we're going to end in a time-honored way where everyone can unmute themselves and we can do a cacophonous goodbye, good evening, good morning, whatever, wherever we are. But a big shout out to everyone, a big thank you to everyone who's spoken, everyone who's asked questions, everyone who's participated. So we can now press the button, whoever's got the button, to unmute all.
Bye.
Thank you to the testing.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
We're amazing.
Bye.